Hello everyone and welcome to another GamePad Online panel. My name is Nigel and I'm the mayamada co-founder and organizer of the GamePad Online event. So I'm once again talking to a bunch of great creative video game professionals discussing important topics in the industry. And for the autumn event, as hopefully you know by now, I've been talking to people who have just got their foot in the door at some amazing games companies and wanting to find out how they did it, basically, and what the industry is like for new starters and what you can learn from them. If you have an interest in working in the video games industry or you're just curious, this is definitely for you if you're either one of those people. So hopefully you take something away from this. Now, I've been speaking to people individually. This time I just got a bunch of people together, just rounded some people up. We're going to grill them all and find out about what it's like to get into the industry. So before I start peppering people with questions, let me introduce the boxes that are here with me today. So we have VFX artist at Mediatonic, Chris Sayers. Chris, welcome to this virtual panel.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Cool. All right. We thought we lost Chris for a second, but he's been. You don't know the battle that Chris has has fought to be here. So
through the trenches this evening.
Yeah, thank you for your service. We have next is the production assistant at the Chinese Room, Saskia Bunte. Hello, Saskia.
And really happy to be here. Second
question: did I pronounce your name right, or even close?
I would say close-ish.
Close-ish.
I mean, umlaut is always, I'll give you a pass on that because it's not part of the English alphabet, so to speak.
Okay.
It's Bunte.
Bunte. Okay, cool. All right, we got that. Couldn't pass without making sure I'm getting people's names right. Last but not least, we have an indie developer and lecturer at Sunderland College, Matt Lawson Hall. I'm hoping I pronounced your name right, but welcome, Matt.
Yeah, it's new. Got married in summer, so yeah, super happy to be here.
Cool. Congratulations. Cool. We're breaking news on this panel. We haven't even started. Okay.
Yeah, I did it first.
All right. So make sure you check the chat. Let us know what you think in the stream chat, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, let us know your thoughts. You can also join our Discord and continue the discussions that we're having here today, especially if you've got questions on actually getting in the industry. And as ever, you're free to throw your thoughts at us on social media. We are at mayamada on Twitter, at mayamada TV on Instagram. So let's get into this. So this first part of the discussion, this breaking into video games panel, is finding out exactly how everyone broke into video games. So we know, and you guys will know even more than me, perhaps, that the video games industry can seem a bit of a mystery to people who aren't in it, specifically working in the video games industry. So for those who do have an awareness of it, finding an actual path in can be a challenge. And we do know that gaming is a competitive sector, and the hurdles will differ depending on what kind of career, what kind of role, path that you want to follow. So that's why we're here today. Everyone here has taken a different path, and we want to talk to our panel about their route in, because there's a saying that success leaves clues. So hopefully people watching can take that away on their own journey. So let's start with these origin stories and find out how everyone got in. Now, I spoke to people before, as we were setting this up, and I've got to say, Chris, you have the I'm going to say the most interesting, unexpected, definitely the most unexpected origin story. Do you want to describe your non-traditional route into video games and how you went from, I believe, drama to VFX?
Yes, this is my villain origin story.
It's a villain origin. It's already taken a dark turn.
So I grew up in Southwest Wales, a little farm on a mountainside. I didn't know anything about games, technology, didn't even know that they were made in the UK. I just was a massive gamer. I went all the way to school, went to university. I ended up going and studying bachelor's in drama and acting, with creative writing as a part of it as well. But when I graduated, I, like many people, needed a job. And I applied for everything and anything that I could find. Some of the which I did manage to find was recruitment, which was not something that I knew anything about previously or how to do or anything. But in my interview, they asked me, why do you think you'd be a good recruiter? And I said, I just did an acting degree. I can pretend to be a good recruiter every single day. Which they kind of liked, which was, I don't know, maybe that was a bit cocky of me, but too bad, it worked. And yeah, I worked in recruitment for a while. I started in digital recruitment, so I worked in technology, digital engineering, pharmaceuticals, things in the kind of digital space. As part of my job, I had to start building my own sector of business, and part of that, the only thing I knew about that was technology related was games. So I started doing some Googling and seeing if there were any games companies in the UK, and it turns out there were quite a few. So I started to try and recruit for games companies. The very first client that I actually spoke to, they happened to be looking for a visual effects artist. And I said, absolutely, I know 10 visual effects artists. I can get you a bunch of them right now. Finished the call and then had to Google what a visual effects artist was because I had no idea. But that's recruitment. And I started to Google more about it, and I was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. I recruited in games for a couple more months, and a gaming recruitment company contacted me to ask to come and work for them as a specific gaming recruiter. Part of that, they sent me to the London VFX Festival to find candidates to work in, to actually give to our clients. And whilst I was at the event, I figured I may as well go to some of the talks. One of them was by David Rolfe, who was at Creative Assembly at the time, who did a talk all about VFX and what it was. And he finished the talk by saying, if anyone's thinking of a career in games, we need more VFX artists. And I was like, cool, that's what I'm going to do then. And I worked in recruit for about another 6 months after that. I saved every single penny that I could. And then one day I just quit on the spot and spent 7 or 8 months living off my savings, spending no money if I could, barely scraping by, and spending every day teaching myself VFX like it was a full-time job, using YouTube tutorials, online things, just trying to figure it out as best as I could, messaging people and trying to ask for help, going to networking events that were free because I was poor, and yeah, doing anything that I could to try and get into games. I applied for like 100+ studios. I wrote I have a folder where I have like 85 different personally written cover letters, and I would say 95% of them ghosted me. You know, who can blame them? And then luckily, Mediatonic decided to take a crazy chance, and I got hired as a junior VFX artist in 2019, and I've been there since. Yeah.
I guess I can probably start at university because that was kind of the pivotal time in my life. Because before university, I was a gamer. Obviously, I played games, but I never seriously considered working in games because, you know, nobody told me that, like, realistically it was a career. You know, like when you're in high school and you're thinking of applying to uni, everyone's like, oh, you're gonna be a lawyer, you know, you're gonna be a banker, whatever. Literally no one was ever like, hey, have you thought about working in games? So in my mind, it was just like, wasn't even a concept. Like, you know, it just like, it didn't even exist in my head. And then I moved to London to study at the London School of Economics and Political Science, where I studied social anthropology, which is something I am very passionate about myself. And then, interestingly, I joined the Gaming Society while I was there. And LSE as a university has like zero to do with games. Like, we just do law, finance, anthropology, economics, politics. Like, we just do social sciences, basically. So, like, we have nothing to do with games. But then, interestingly, it was at LSE that I discovered that I could actually work in games. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what I want to do, actually. Which is quite ironic in a way. And through my work in the LSE Gaming Society, I met Kish Furani, who is the chair of BAME and Games, which is an organization that I've been volunteering for the past few years. as the events manager. And when I look back on this journey, like I feel like a lot of it really is like serendipity. I can really see how like meeting specific people, doing things kind of put me on this path. And I didn't even realize it at that time. But when I look back now, obviously, like it all kind of makes sense. So through my work with Bayman Games, which I've been doing basically since I graduated, we did an event with Sumo Digital, an online event, which was really awesome. And, we also did a panel similar to this, chatting to lots of people about their experiences working in games. And then a few weeks after that event, one of the panelists was like, our sister studio, the Chinese Room, just launched this brand new internship program, which is really awesome. And they're looking for people who want to work in games, who kind of don't come from a games background. I was like, well, that's me, that's literally me. You're looking for someone like myself. And it was crazy because, up until that point, applying for jobs in games was very difficult because even for entry-level roles, they expected you to have a lot of experience, which just isn't the case for a lot of people, right? Especially if you're like, fresh out of uni, something like that. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, I need to seriously, like, put effort into this application. And then, I was able to chat to the panelist and she introduced me to someone at the Chinese Room whom I could ask a few questions and stuff. And then, that person gave me some advice and, I put in the application in the end. And it turns out that, the entry scheme itself was hugely popular. I think they had, 500 plus applications. They were like completely overwhelmed by like the demand for it and how popular it was going to be. It was way more popular than they expected. And then, ultimately, obviously, they narrowed it down. And then I did the interview. And then, miraculously, they decided to offer one of the positions to me, which, I'm very happy about. And to me, it just seemed like such a crazy concept, that something like this would even exist. And I just feel so lucky that someone out there decided they were going to do a program like this. And then out of all of the applicants decided that, they would pick me. And it's just really serendipitous, I guess, in a way. And, to have ended up here. Yeah, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny how having done these interviews and the more I do, the more the word lucky comes up or serendipitous. And it's like you said, looking back, you see the steps and you kind of see like at some point you made some decisions and you took some steps and you had to sort of put yourself forward, kind of like same with Chris, and to get those opportunities that you eventually took. So yeah, no, it's good to hear that. And I want to make sure I don't forget Matt in terms of like how you've gotten in, and particularly for you, Matt, as a lecturer, hearing these stories, because you're working with people who would like to take this similar journey as these two. Like, what do you feel like hearing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's super cool. I don't think there's like a conventional way as such. Like everyone's got their own way of getting in. For me, like I really liked like sharing knowledge with people. So like at the end of my degree, I was worried like a lot of people about getting a job and actually being able to do it. And I'd looked into teaching at that point. But I really didn't want to go into teaching if I hadn't worked in industry first. And I managed to get an industry job, worked in that for a number of years, and then kind of moved over to teaching to kind of share it that way, which was really cool. And I kind of built up all my experience in teaching. And then I was like, I miss making stuff. So I kind of slowly blended over to doing kind of like my own stuff, so developing my own indie studio, and now I've got this really nice kind of blend between part-time teaching and then building my own stuff, which is really cool because I get to share it with students so they can see what I'm doing. They can see the stuff that I'm putting on social media. I find they believe a lot of the stuff that I say, which is weird to say, but a lot of students don't necessarily always like trust like their teachers, particularly at the level which I teach, which is college level. They're like, hey, what are you doing to know if you're not actively doing it? So yeah, that's Yeah, so
Wow.
I don't think there is a conventional way at all. I think there's it's if you put hard work in, then you'll get stuff out, which both everyone in here has. So I think that just goes to show.
Yeah, that's mad. You say that your students, or not specifically your students, but students might not believe lecturers and teachers, but it obviously helps if you've done the thing or you're doing the thing that you're teaching about. I can see that. I can imagine. I won't put words in your mouth, but I've been in sessions where it has helped. I've met some skeptical young people, but as soon as I say I'm actually doing the thing I'm telling you about, you do get a certain amount of respect, and that helps. Obviously, that helps in a classroom setting. So that's pretty cool. And both Chris and Saskia, you've mentioned in terms of like the numbers. So Saskia, you mentioned like how many people were applying for your role. Chris, you mentioned how many applications you were looking to make. So it just shows like how many people are looking to get into the industry. And as I mentioned at the top, how much of a challenge it can be. So I do want to like bring up some of those challenges. We'll talk about it now and over the other parts, because I think that's important to be aware of. And I'm thinking like for you, Chris, as someone who is essentially self-taught, so you came with an acting background, which clearly served you well when you said you can find some, you've got VFX artist. So that worked out for you. But when you actually like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn this, and you made use of like free resources like YouTube, were there like any particular challenges that came up in having to teach yourself, and any missteps that you made along the way?
Yeah, 100%. I'd say starting, it's incredibly overwhelming. I think it can feel like, I don't know, trying to start learning a language. You're like, how am I going to remember an entire language? Like, how am I going to do that? And it's not even just like the language, it's the words. It's like all the rules and the grammar and stuff like that. And it's like, when you start, it being so overwhelming can be the moment that you just immediately go, you know what, this is going to be too hard. I can't do this. And I think I did a couple of times. Because I was originally trying to teach myself whilst I was working my full-time job. And it's one of the reasons why I decided I have to change tact. For me, if I'm going to really throw myself at it, I'm going to work like crazy, save up every penny. And I saved up a couple of grand, enough to sustain me for around about 9 months. Like, I was like, okay, I've costed my life out. How long could I live with this amount of money without getting any more additional money in, still paying rent, paying my bills, everything? And I was like, cool, that's how long I can last. And I was like, cool, I can make the decision based on what I have to quit. I wasn't living with my parents. I didn't have anything to fall back on. There was no security blanket. I was like, I have this amount of money. You have a time limit, Chris. You have to learn within this amount of time, or you have to get another job again. And yeah, I think when I was trying to do it alongside my job, it was incredibly difficult. Like, you only have so many hours in the day, and you're tired. Like, your brain's been used all day to do recruitment stuff, and then you're having to go home and try and teach yourself the whole thing. It's tough. And I think I didn't really hit my stride until I did quit my job, where I had that focused every single day, like 8 a.m. until 6 p.m., 5 days a week, treating it like it was its own job. And then even after that point, once you've spent all that time, you do get to a point where you kind of plateau, because you're like, I don't know what I don't know. There may be things out there which I don't even know exist. So how can I Google them? Yeah, it's super difficult. The way that I got around doing that, which is kind of like the second part of maybe why I was successful, was when you get to those points where you realize, like, I don't know what I don't know, or, I'm really struggling, is having to be like, cool, I need someone's help. I need to find someone that can help me. The nice thing about games is that people are very, very friendly. I mean, I can't think of a single example of when I've reached out to someone and asked them a question and it not been like a pleasant experience. Like, even if they're like, hey, sorry, no, I can't help you. You're like, cool, that's fine, next person. But reaching out and finding communities of people that I could like post my work to and be like, hi, how can I make my work not bad? And that was so invaluable. And I think that's the kind of things that you have to be aware of, is that you have to be incredibly disciplined at the beginning, but then that can only get you so far. And there is a point where you're going to have to kind of broaden your approach and change things up. And in my case, it was, okay, I need someone to help me, even if it's just like a passing comment here and there. But yeah, saying I was in the same route. Saying this though, it gave me impeccable experience for the pandemic, because I spent every single day in my bedroom like 7 months straight, talking to no one and just at my computer learning VFX. Time the pandemic came around, I was ready.
Did you even notice?
I was like, nothing's changed. But no, in seriousness, no, like it was tough. I'm not gonna lie, it was at points miserable, but like I was like, I'm at a disadvantage here. Like, I have a handicap. I don't have any experience. I don't have any knowledge. If I want to take this seriously, I'm going to have to dedicate a lot of time to this, and I can't half-ass it. And it might be a bit painful sometimes and just frustrating, because you're like, I feel stupid because I don't have a teacher. But like, if you want it, and you're like you were saying, Matt, like, it's the hard work element of it. I really feel strongly is that you don't necessarily need any particular resource. You just have to keep going.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, you say, you sort of didn't have a teacher. I mean, we've got a teacher here, so maybe a bit late, but he is here. So, like, Matt, I mean, like, again, sort of listening to that and thinking about the students that you interact with, what do you think is some of the biggest barriers that exist for people that do aspire to get where Chris and Saskia are?
I think sometimes it is finding out what you want to do, because we get a lot of students that's like, hey, I want to work in games, but then some of those students don't really want to work in games. Those students want to play games as well, and because there's so many different kind of disciplines in games, like VFX sort of thing, where a lot of people won't go, I want to work in games and I want to work in VFX sort of thing. They just want to make games. So it's kind of working out what that is and finding that passion. Like, the course that I teach on is pretty cool for that, because we kind of cover all areas from art to code, all in kind of one blanket, and at kind of A-level level, so 16-year-olds. So it's pre-university, and they get to kind of sample everything there. So it's a 2-year course. They get to sample everything in the first year, and in the second year they specialize a little bit more. So they even get a go at kind of trying to specialize and going at something right before they've even made a choice for any kind of university courses. Whereas there's a lot of people that will, do traditional A-levels and then apply to university courses. And, you've not had that experience, so you could apply for a 3D game art course, and actually you're more of a game designer or a programmer, and then maybe you're not getting that experience that you need to build up, like Chris said that he did in that period of time that he saved up for. Because I think, education is like a great space for you to have that safety blanket. Like, because if you knew what you wanted to do at that age, you could have done something and you would have been doing that, but within education, and then you wouldn't have to worry so much about the rent and things like that. But then likewise, it also shows that you don't have to do that as well, and there are other ways in there. Your life's so long anyway, like there's ways to kind of work into it. So I think, like, definitely finding your passion is might not seem like a barrier as such, I guess, but it's almost like a stealth barrier, I guess. I've talked a lot there.
No, it's good. I think that it's important to highlight the finding out what you want to do, because, like you said, and I've seen it, because games is fun. I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any big news. Like games is fun, but the problem is, it's like a double-edged sword. You think it's all fun, and you think, oh, working in games is just playing games, and I'm gonna take a guess that you guys don't all play games every day in your job. So there's work to it. And I think particularly for young people who might be caught up in that, just playing games, it's cool, it's fun, is breaking that, for lack of a better term, instead of figuring out or letting them figure out that there's more to it. And then for those that go beyond that, like, yeah, actually I still do want to work in this, then what do you want to do? What are you good at? Where's your passion? And helping them along that way. So before we bring this first segment to a close, I want to stay on the challenges aspect and look at again, Saskia, as you going through that entry scheme, was there any particular challenge that you found during that process? And I'm almost as concerned about like any non-technical challenges that you had to overcome. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. If I may, I also just want to add a small point to what we were talking about before related to education.
Yep.
Which is that, something I really struggled with when I was at university is that even though I had made the decision that I wanted to work in games, my university didn't have any connections. Like, they didn't have any games courses, they didn't have connections with the industry, no placement programs, no nothing. Obviously, a lot of people nowadays are much luckier if they go to a university where they have specific game courses and they can connect you to people in the industry. But I didn't have any of that, so, it wasn't exactly the same as Chris. Like, I wasn't like teaching myself, but I did have to kind of build a network from scratch in a way. I had to reach out to people and be like, what is it actually like to work in games? Like having to do a lot of the hard work of like talking to people to like demystify the process. So I really feel like, the work that Matt is doing is really invaluable because, it helps people like understand this stuff like so much earlier on, like this kind of knowledge, this kind of access to people really like irreplaceable, I guess, in a way, and I think I definitely wouldn't have struggled as much as I did, if stuff like infrastructure like that had been in place for me. But yeah, onto your question about the entry scheme. One thing that I specifically dealt with, non-technical, I think was definitely imposter syndrome because, I could see very clearly this was a very popular scheme. Like, they posted on Twitter, people went crazy. Everyone's like, can I apply for this? I'm not in the UK. Can I apply for this? Is this remote? Like, so many questions. There was such a huge demand for it. And I was like, oh, okay, like, lots of people are going to apply for this. I'm going to be one of those people, and it was, obviously I put a lot of pressure on myself. I was like, I need to make this application like really good, like tailor it, whatever. And then, I applied for it. And then, eventually they did reach out to do an interview. And I was like, okay, well, at least I've passed that stage, right? So like I'm in the like select few now that get an interview. And then, I did the interview with 3 people, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised because they seem to actually just want to like get to know me as a person more and like how they can support me on my journey. It wasn't really like the type of interview where they're like, like tell us about your accomplishments or like, what would you do in this scenario? What would you do in that scenario? And like trying to like scope you out or whatever. So the interview itself was very pleasant. And then, I think, the period after the interview is always the worst because you're always like going over everything in your mind. You're like, oh, did I answer that right? Like, oh, that sounded stupid. And I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I didn't think I was going to get it because there was just so many people. And I was like, I didn't really know what to think. I didn't want to get my hopes up. And, it just, you reach a point where you're just like, whatever happens, happens, like I'm just going to not try and think about it too much. And then when I actually got it, I was like, really amazed, obviously. But then, even until before I started, I was still struggling a lot. I was like, did they make a mistake? Like, why did they pick me out of all these people? And like, until you start, it just like doesn't even feel real. You're like, oh, they could still like still take it back.
It's like, you'll get that email like, oh wait, no, we make it. There was another Saskia. Like
yeah,
we
exactly.
went to the wrong one.
We just pranked you. So, but then I actually started, and then it became real, and then I was like, oh, okay, like I am actually doing this. And then things started to settle down a bit more. I mean, imposter syndrome doesn't, ever like, magically like disappear or whatever. But then once I actually started doing stuff, meeting people, things started to improve a lot for me, I think. Then I wasn't worried so much about like, oh my God, am I going to do a good job? Like, am I going to live up to people's expectations of me or whatever? And then it was more like, okay, now it's time to learn. Now it's time to talk to people and like absorb stuff. And, now I've gotten to a point where I'm like comfortable and I'm like doing stuff, taking on more responsibility and, but it takes time obviously to get to that stage. And there's just like a lot of emotional turmoil, like beforehand and in between and stuff. And yeah, it's just like, it's hard out there, it's hard out there to like find a job and, advocate for yourself. And, the struggle is so real. So, I'm happy that I've gotten to this point now where I'm like, like settled and stuff and things are good. But yeah, the struggle is real and, just want to put that out there, I guess.
No, it's important because, like I said, there are challenges, and I think that as best you can be aware of them, it helps you face them. Because that imposter syndrome thing is, I've got no advice for that because I go through that as well. But I think the only thing I'd say for people who are like looking to get in and feeling that is like, you're not the only one, and it always surprises me when hear from different people. It's like, oh, you feel like that as well. Wait, does everyone feel like that? So it is that kind of shared experience almost. So it's also not a reason to not push yourself through it as best as you can, because you're here. You got the job and still managed to get to that point. So so we've learned a bit more about each of our panelists, but in part 2 of this panel, you will be able to hear a bit more about what each person actually does now they are in the door. You can also look out for all 3 panel parts, which will be released on YouTube after GamePad Online. So if you're watching this live, stick around for part 2 and we'll see you in just a bit. Hey there, I'm Nigel from mayamada. Thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other great videos we have on the channel. You can also join the GamePad Discord and check out the next event at gamepad.events. We'll see you soon.